pinch hitting for us today.
Yes, it's being recorded.
Yes, it is. I just started it. Sorry, I almost forgot, but it started now.
That's okay. Thank you.
And then I'll make Savannah or Caroline the co-host or the host.
The host, I just want to share my screen.
Okay, great.
A co-host will work fine.
So my teacher, Nancy Spence Sujata Yasa, trained at Vichara in California, and her teacher put together a condensation of the Buddhist teachings into what we call in our Sangha the daily recitation. And so we use a mala that has the segments of the Buddhist teachings separated by these white beads. So I'm going to share with you what that looks like in printed form. Can you see that? Can you see my screen? Is it too small? So it's called the daily recitation, and you can have access to this through our website. It's anattasati.org, and I'll put that name in the chat so you know what it is, and you can download this if you would like to. So the daily recitation starts out with the Dharma section of the teachings, and it talks about the three jewels, the Four Noble Truths, the three characteristics of existence, and the Pranaparamita Hridaya Sutra. So we've covered most of that in the classes there with Great Tree, except we skipped class 3 because I was ill. So we'll fill that in later. And that was on the three characteristics of existence. So now we're moving to the Sangha section of the Buddhist teachings. And they start with what we call the Sangha bead on our mala. And we're going to move into the Noble Eightfold Path. All right. So we say, actually, I'll bring that back up again. That might be helpful. So we say during this section of recitation for the mala, we say Sangha is the precious order of spiritual ancestors, laity, monastics, and all those who follow and practice this path. So here we're paying homage to all who train. There's a recognition and a respect here for everyone who has ever stepped along this path. This respect for others deepens as we ourselves train on the path, as we discover for ourselves the effort and dedication that this takes. And there's silent gratitude we each experience when we come to our Sangha services and we see what we begin to recognize as familiar faces. And we understand the effort that each of us has made to be here to practice the Dharma, and the good merit that we've accumulated through many, many lives to hear the Dharma yet again and to be here to practice together and with teachers. This gratitude to one another, which is often unspoken, is like glue that holds a Sangha together for over 2,500 years. Traditionally, Sangha referred to those individuals who made the practice of the Dharma their life, and that is the ordained monks and nuns. And when we at Great Tree and for our Sangha, we recite the lineage of all the Buddhas down all the way through to Tejo and then on to you. And Tejo, in your Sangha, do you recite women's lineage?
We haven't started doing it yet because I don't know how to pronounce all the names.
I can help you pronounce it if there's the same lineage. So we also recite the women's lineage in our Sangha. And to say those names, it's just, I mean, knowing what Tejo does and what my teacher did to sacrifice to bring the Dharma to us. And now it's so easy with Zoom and cars, but you know, back then when everybody was walking and traveling, to bring the Dharma, the great effort I can imagine that it took to bring the Dharma, especially in the Buddhist time. So there's just great respect for me when we recite the lineage about how many people who have sacrificed to do that for us. Dogen Zenji says that the virtue of peace and harmony is the Sangha treasure. Those who learn the Buddha and the Dharma are the Sangha treasure. The people who relieve others of various sufferings and save them from the burning house of the three worlds of the past, present, and future are the Sangha treasure. And so we say Sangha is the precious order of spiritual ancestors, laity, monastics, and all those who follow and practice this path. Homage to all Sanghas. Homage to all who are approaching this path. Homage to all who follow and establish this path. In this way, I do most deeply vow to train the self. So on the mala, there's that section of the teaching has 3 big beads, and there's 2 smaller beads separated from when we are vowing to train the self. Okay, so that is the Sangha portion of this teaching. So now we're going to move into the Noble Eightfold Path. Does anybody have any comments or that they'd like to share about Sangha?
One thing that I've kind of come to is that I kind of include everyone who's on a spiritual path in Sangha.
Thank you, Teja. I can only see 4 people, so if you have something you'd like to say, you can speak up. Since I'm sharing my screen, I can't see everybody. Okay, so now we're going to move on then to the Eightfold Path. And the Eightfold Path is by comprehension that dissipates delusion, by aspiration that harms no one, by speech that makes for clarity, by self-discipline that brings no regret, by livelihood that brings no discredit, by endeavor that results in goodness, by mindfulness that proves this path, and by concentration and awareness that lead to nirvana. And then we recite, in this way, I do most deeply vow to train the self. So on our mala, the recitation of the Eightfold Path, this is the path that we speak of in the fourth of the Noble Truths, the path that leads to the extinction of suffering. So fold, the Eightfold Path, fold means one thing that gathers within another. When this teaching was translated into English, it was presented as right, as in right comprehension, right effort. And Nancy's teacher, Vichara Roshi, translated for Westerners, removing the word right, so that we wouldn't perhaps interpret the opposite as wrong. The Buddha said that this path is not linear, that it is circular, and it's often seen as spokes on a wheel. So we can come to it from different angles. We don't have to learn one aspect of the path before we move to another. They come and move through our lives. And the Eightfold Path itself is then broken down into 3 sections. The first two present the wisdom aspect. The first two of the way when we recite the Eightfold Path represent the wisdom aspect of the path, okay? So when we recite comprehension that dissipates delusion, and that is the wisdom of clear vision, and by aspiration that harms no one. So I'm going to read to you some from Walpola Sri Rahula's article on the Noble Eightfold Path. Within the Fourth Noble Truth is found the guide to the end of suffering, the Noble Eightfold Path. The 8 parts of the path to liberation are grouped into 3 essential elements of Buddhist practice: moral conduct, mental discipline, and wisdom. The Buddha taught the Eightfold Path in virtually all of his discourses, and his directions are as clear and practical to his followers today as they were when he first gave them. Practically the whole teaching of the Buddha, to which he devoted himself during 45 years, deals in some way or other with this path. He explained it in different ways and in different words to different people, according to the stage of their development and their capacity to understand and follow him. But the essence of those many thousand discourses scattered in the Buddhist scriptures are found in the Noble Eightfold Path. It should not be thought that the 8 categories or divisions of the path should be followed and practiced in one after the other in a numerical order as given in the usual list above, but they are to be developed more or less simultaneously, as far as possible according to the capacity of each individual. They are linked together, and each helps the cultivation of the others. These 8 factors aim at promoting and perfecting the 3 essentials of Buddhist training and discipline, namely ethical conduct, mental discipline, and wisdom. It's more helpful for a coherent and better understanding of the 8 divisions of the path if we group them and explain them according to these heads. So ethical conduct is built on the vast conception of universal love and compassion for all living beings, on which the Buddha's teachings are based. It's regrettable that many scholars forget this great ideal of the Buddha's teaching and indulge in only dry philosophical and metaphysical wanderings when they talk and write about Buddhism. That's Mita. Somebody's coming downstairs and he hears them. Mita, come here. Come here. The Buddha gave his teaching for the good of the many, for the happiness of the many, and out of compassion for the world. According to Buddhism, for a person to be perfect, there are 2 qualities that he should develop equally, and that is compassion on one side and wisdom on the other. And here compassion represents love, charity, kindness, tolerance, and noble qualities on the emotional side, or qualities of the heart, while wisdom would stand for the intellectual side, or the qualities of the mind. If one develops only the emotional, neglecting the intellectual, one may become a good-hearted fool, while to develop only the intellectual side and neglecting the emotional may turn one into a hard-hearted intellect without feeling for others. Therefore, to be perfect, one has to develop both equally. That is the aim of the Buddhist way of life. In it, wisdom and compassion are inseparably linked together, as we shall see later. In ethical conduct, based on love and compassion, are included 3 factors of the Noble Eightfold Path, and these are right speech, right action, and right livelihood. When we're reciting the daily recitation for right speech, we say speech that makes for clarity. Right speech means abstention from telling lies, from backbiting and slander, and talk that may bring about hatred, ill will, disunity, and disharmony among individuals or groups of people. From harsh, rude, impolite, malicious, and abusive language, and from idle, useless, and foolish babble and gossip. When one abstains from these forms of wrong and harmful speech, one naturally has to speak the truth, has to use words that are friendly and benevolent, pleasant and gentle, meaningful and useful. One should not speak carelessly. Speech should be at the right time and place. If one cannot say something useful, one should keep noble silence. So in my family, when I was growing up, my parents were very good at right speech. My older brother was not. And I learned from my older brother in order to survive. And so he would often use me as the brunt of his fun. And so he would tease me and speak about me. And so I learned to, in defense, to do the same. And I learned what's called backhanded compliments, or what was the other thing? It's called put down humor. And I didn't know I learned it until I was in my 20s, and I was using put down humor. And someone's told me, we don't do that in this community. I didn't even know I was doing it. And so it was a great teaching for me. And it was given to me very kindly and compassionately, because I didn't know I was doing it. I did it in order to survive, because of the things that my brother said to me, they were very hurtful. And he would use it as me as the brunt of his humor. But I learned how to do it out of self-defense. And so I'm very careful with my thoughts and with my speech around that kind of behavior, because I know what it feels like to be the brunt of it. And so I'm grateful for the person who kindly and lovingly showed me an unskillful way. Somebody in the greater Sangha who wasn't Buddhist, just a dear friend. So that is speech that makes for clarity. Anybody else have anything they want to share about speech that makes for clarity? Chris?
Yes, what you were saying about what you picked up from your brother, I'm experiencing that with my significant other, and it's like to kind of go with him, to be with him, I've picked up some bad things, and it's like, oh, I don't know. It's a hard thing to deal with. Yeah, right speech. But then how do you not do that? But you can figure it out, I guess.
Well, you catch yourself. Sometimes you don't catch yourself until after it comes out of your mouth. And then you can catch yourself maybe midway. And then you can catch yourself right on the back of your tongue. And then you can learn, you can train to do this. You can train to maybe apologize after you say it. After something comes out of your mouth and you realize it may have been hurtful, to actually apologize, to say, I'm sorry, that was unskillful. I didn't mean any harm. It's a habit that I'm working on. And be honest about it. And I was thinking that when we get hurt, when we bang our elbow or our knee, it's okay to say ouch. But when somebody says or does something to us that is hurtful, we don't say ouch. We don't say anything, typically. At least for me, I wasn't. If I said something, then I'd be, again, by my brother, I'd be belittled for being a baby. So, that training from my brother taught me to not say anything, just take the hit and then keep taking the hit, So to maybe after the hit loses its sting to be able to say something in a kind and compassionate way to your partner. You know, when you said it in that way, it felt like this. And that's hurtful.
It's really more stupid comments, like smart ass stuff. It's like, why would you say that? And it's like, I'm getting tired of saying, like, I just don't say it. I ignore him half the time now. It's like, oh, anyway, that's my problem.
Yeah, but again, Chris, even watching the comment in your own mind about it, because somehow he learned that, probably out of probably just as I did, out of self-protection, you know. So we're all trying the best we can with the skills that we learned, and some of them are unskillful, and some of them are half and half, and some of them are skillful. So to try to find compassion for how I can see how my brother did that. It's a neighborhood of all boys, and they were bullies, and so he had to learn how to do that to not get beaten down. I understand.
Thank you.
Yeah. Anybody else? Anne?
I just want to say, Chris, I used to be very sarcastic. I grew up in the North, and then I moved to Georgia, and I really wasn't very aware of it anymore, like you were saying. But the people who taught me to quit were these kids I was working with. They were living in a mill community, like the last one in Atlanta way back when. And they simply didn't get it. They I'd say something sarcastic and it would just die. And I started because of their lack of response. So I just want to say to Chris, if you can get to the point where you're not going, ugh, inside yourself, but you're totally unresponsive, it's possible that does eventually, give the message in a way that extinguishes the behavior. That's all.
Thank you, Anne.
Hi. So first of all, thank you for your talk. One way I learned about right speech, I kind of had to as a case manager, working with people experiencing homelessness. And so a lot of, I automatically had the habit of referring to people as an addict instead of struggling with addiction. Like there was was forced to learn to acknowledge the human part of what they were going through and then put a language to it, like struggling with addiction. So, or struggling with or stop saying addiction at all, like struggling with whatever the substance was. And so just having, being forced to use it, the more I used that language, the more I could really see the person and what was going on, sort of like that built-in compassion.
That's helpful. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I think that, I kept calling my brother a bully. And that's not fair to call him a bully, because he's not always a bully. Can be very kind and generous. But when he behaves that way to me, I become a 10-year-old again. And he's 15. And I'm no longer a 69-year-old. I'm a 10-year-old or a 5-year-old or whatever. So, thank you. Okay, the next is right action. We say self-discipline that brings no regret, and this was right along in line here. Right action aims at promoting moral, honorable, and peaceful conduct. It admonishes us that we should abstain from destroying life, from stealing, from dishonest dealings, from illegitimate sexual intercourse, and that we should also help others to lead a peaceful and honorable life in the right way. Self-discipline that brings no regret. Anyone have anything about that aspect of the path? Our Sangha, we started a conservation green cemetery out in Mills River. And I didn't know much about conservation when I started the sanctuary, but I had to learn a lot about it. And so we protect the plant kingdom and we protect the animal kingdom. And this spring we did what's called a controlled burn, where for ecological reasons, we burn part of the land to help with the revitalization of the native plant species and to help to diminish the non-native plant species. But I'll admit that I was ignoring the aspect of the animal kingdom out there. So after the burn, I went out and was walking around to see what had been done. And there was a cooked frog right there in front of me who couldn't escape the fire. And it just broke my heart, because I was ignoring, hadn't even thought of how are the animals around the wetland going to protect themselves and be able to get away. And so there's consequence to that. There's consequence for me to that, and I'm willing to accept those consequences. It's karmic, and I deeply regret that ignorance around the entire aspect of what it means to burn an area of land. So it's that self-discipline that brings no regret. And the pathway that I walk up when to come to where our Sangha house is, there's these little tiny bugs that kind of move really fast out of the way when they see something coming. And I think about all those thousands of those little things that I step on every day because they're there. So it just, I don't know, it just helps me to be a little bit more compassionate about the ways that I can't be aware of everything, and compassionate when it is brought to my attention, the ways that I am ignoring something. And again, instead of using it to beat myself up, I'm accepting the karma of it and moving forward the best I can with loving kindness and compassion, and knowing that when we do a controlled burn, that there will be death. And so it's helps to bring for me the aspect of the path of self-discipline or right action that brings no regret. Yeah. Anybody have anything they want to say about the right action?
Tankyo, please.
Tankyo, thank you.
I think this is a very significant one that points to our Zazen practice, the self-discipline, and of course all 8 of them do in one big circle with the cushion in the middle. But this is very significant, I think, what you brought out, and how important Zazen is to begin cultivating that self-discipline that can spread to everything else in your life. Mm-hmm. And thank you for bringing that to us.
You're welcome. And it's true, when we're sitting in Zazen and our minds start going and the thoughts are demeritorious, to take a breath and bring them back. Maybe breathe into your heart space some loving kindness and compassion for yourself, and send out ease to yourself, and and send out these to everybody. So we're retraining our minds to think in different ways. Our hearts to open naturally when we've experienced pain, instead of closing down to pain, that we breathe in and breathe out compassion immediately. And that's another thing that the cemetery project has helped me with, is that compassionate heart, that I'm not afraid of strong emotions from people, because they're usually temporary, and it's usually based on fear or great loss or confusion. And so have y'all learned the practice of Tonglen? Yes. So with Tonglen, you learned to breathe in what might be discomfort or even scary, and you breathe out ease without taking it on. You're opening your heart space so that there's a space for it to flow through. And in that way, you also help to open yourself and the person who is experiencing those strong emotions somehow feels the compassion being sent out. It's a very helpful tool to have in your toolbox, in your Buddhist toolbox. So, okay. The next aspect of the Eightfold Path is right livelihood. And we say livelihood that brings no discredit. Right livelihood means that one should abstain from making one's living through a profession that brings harm to others, such as training in arms and lethal weapons, intoxicating drinks or poisons, killing animals, cheating, etc., and should live by a profession which is honorable, blameless, and innocent of harm to others. One can clearly see here that Buddhism is strongly opposed to any kind of war when it lays down that trade in arms and lethal weapons is an evil and unjust means of livelihood. So another aspect of the cemetery, the graves are dug by hand. And so they were digging a grave, and there was a groundhog hole that went through the grave. And so they didn't find the groundhog, but we just imagined the groundhog when it was on its trek, that there would be somebody living inside the path. And but it's those kinds of things. And sometimes we'll dig a grave and then there's a snake ends up in the bottom, so we need to get it out, or a mouse or something. So making sure that we are being kind to whatever we encounter in that way, and from now on, the frogs. Any comments or questions about that aspect?
Just going back to the frog, that's why we have to be in a constant state of asking for forgiveness. Because, you are doing a good thing with the cemetery. And when we drive cars, we kill bugs. I mean, we're always killing something, it seems. And it's like, please forgive me. It's.
Thank you. Okay, these three factors, right speech, right action, and right livelihood of the Eightfold Path, constitute ethical conduct. It should be realized that the Buddhist ethical and moral conduct aims at promoting a happy and harmonious life, both for the individual and for society. This moral conduct is considered as the indispensable foundation for all higher spiritual attainments. No spiritual development is possible without this moral basis. The next is mental discipline, in which are included three other factors of the Eightfold Path, and they are right effort, right mindfulness, and right concentration. So right effort, and we say endeavor that results in goodness. Right effort is the energetic will to prevent evil and unwholesome states of mind from arising, 2, to get rid of such evil and unwholesome states that have already arisen within a person, and also number 3, to produce, to cause to arise good and wholesome states of mind not yet arisen, and 4, to develop and bring to perfection the good and wholesome states of mind already present in a person. So first is to prevent unwholesome states of mind from arising. The second is to eliminate those states of mind that have arisen. The third is to produce or cause to arise good and wholesome states of mind that have not yet arisen. And the fourth is to develop and bring to perfection the good and wholesome states of mind already present.
Can I
think,
ask a
Chris,
question?
go ahead. Mhm.
Before, when you were going through things, you said that mental discipline included by self-discipline that brings no regret. Does that fit in there?
Let's see.
When you're doing the mala description?
That was in the, that's included in, right action. That's included in right action, self-discipline that brings no regret. They're worded differently, but we could, that would be a place to, as far as mental discipline, that would also be a good place to do, let's see here. That's an ethical conduct. Now we're in mental discipline. Ethical conduct was self-discipline, right action, self-discipline that brings no regret. So the three aspects of the Eightfold Path are ethical conduct, mental discipline, and the wisdom aspect. There's lots of numbers and sections in Buddhism. All right, the next one is right mindfulness. And we say when we're doing the daily recitation, mindfulness that proves this path. Right mindfulness is to be diligently aware and mindful and attentive with regard to the activities of the body, the sensations or feelings, the activities of the mind, and ideas, thoughts, conceptions, and things. The practice of concentration on breathing is one of the well-known exercises connected with the body for mental development. And there are several other ways of developing attentiveness in relation to the body as modes of meditation. Have y'all heard of Mingyur Rinpoche? He wrote a book on about several books: The Joy of Living, the Joy of Wisdom, and he tells his story about near-death experience. But he teaches a class at tergar.org on, which I love. It's about using the senses to develop awareness. This is how Tibetans train. They would use the senses first to develop awareness and then move into the meditation practices that we start with in Zen. And so I find that it's very helpful to be able to be in tune with the body and the senses as the sense organ attaches to a sense object. There is it's gone out of my mind. There's sense consciousness, which is awareness. So we are actually meditating, and that's meditation. So we're actually meditating a lot, but we call, as in Zen, we call meditation when you're sitting down, usually on the cushion, and you're letting thoughts arise and pass. watching the breath, those kinds of things. So for me, training with Mingyur Rinpoche, with using the sense organ of the eye and the sense object for a long period of time, helps me then to be aware when I'm out in nature, I'm meditating more, or when I'm speaking with somebody, because I've trained in using the sense organ and the sense object to train an awareness, then that helps me to be more aware in daily life versus just on the cushion. So his book is The Joy of Living, Mingyur Rinpoche, if you're interested. But this is kind of with regard to sensations and feelings, one should be clearly aware of all forms of feelings and sensations, pleasant, unpleasant, and neutral. And he has you do that in his training. You start with the eyes, the tongue, the hearing, touch, and then you move on to emotions and thoughts, so that when you're having a discursive thought, you can, as it's happening, you can drop into, okay, what's going on with my body? What's going on with my emotions, so that there's a disruption in the discursive thought that goes counter to the Eightfold Path, instead of just yelling at ourselves internally to stop thinking those things. So anyway, there's ways to try, other ways to train to help to become more aware of all this stuff that's going on in the background in our daily lives. And that's all this background chatter that we can then just lightly turn to, and address it and take a breath and send ease to it, and then go back to where we were headed in the first place. And it takes a lot of that. It still takes a lot of that for me during the day to turn to it and go back, because it's so habitual. So right mindfulness, using mindfulness to turn to those things which we know are unskillful. Concerning the activities of the mind, one should be aware whether one's mind is lustful or not, given to hatred or not, deluded or not, distracted or concentrated, etc. In this way, one should be aware of all movements of mind and how they arise and disappear. And one of the good techniques too, as my teacher taught, is when we find ourselves in that, my anger with my brother, what happened right before that, before I recognized the anger? What thought, it's usually a thought. And then what happened right before that is usually a physical sensation in me, or an emotion. And then what happened before that was usually a physical sensation. That's how my reaction pattern kind of works before I get to a thought that is around ill will. And it's good to know those things. And then I breathe in loving kindness and compassion and send out ease to myself. I don't pick up a stick and beat myself because I'm doing it yet again. I'm still learning to undo these big knots that we've tied up in order to survive, in order to make it to where we are now. I mean, we did what we could when we learned these behaviors in order to survive, and they don't serve us now anymore. So we can lovingly and kindly let those go and learn how to untie them. Again, with loving kindness and compassion for ourselves first, and then for the other person. Okay, so breathe in that loving kindness and compassion for yourself first when you know you're doing something or you feel hit by something somebody says, and then try then to send out loving compassion if you can to the other person. As regards to ideas, thoughts, and conceptions and things, one should know their nature, how they appear and disappear, how they are developed, how they are suppressed, destroyed, and so on. These 4 forms of mental culture or meditation are treated in detail in the Satipatthana Sutra, or setting up of mindfulness. Okay. Any question about right mindfulness? Yes? Nope? Okay. All right, let's see, right concentration. I've only got 9 minutes left. Let's see, when we say awareness that leads to nirvana. The third and last factor of mental discipline is right concentration, leading to the 4 stages of dhyana, generally called trance or contemplation or meditation. In the first stage of dhyana, passionate desires and certain unwholesome thoughts like sensuous lust, ill will, languor, worry, restlessness, and skeptical doubt are discarded, and feelings of joy, happiness are maintained, along with certain mental activities. And then in the second stage, all intellectual activities are suppressed. Tranquility and one-pointedness of mind are developed, and the feelings of joy and happiness are still retained. In the third stage of awareness that leads to nirvana, the feeling of joy, which is an active sensation, also disappears, while the disposition of happiness still remains, in addition to mindful equanimity. And finally, in the fourth stage of dhyana, all sensations, even of happiness and unhappiness, of joy and sorrow disappear, and only pure equanimity and awareness remain. Thus, the mind is trained and disciplined and developed through right effort, right mindfulness, and right concentration. That sounds lovely. I can't wait to get there. All right, so the final aspect of the Eightfold Path is the wisdom aspect. And the remaining 2 factors are right thought and right understanding. And these constitute the wisdom aspect of the Eightfold Path. So right thought, in our daily recitation, we say aspiration that harms no one. Right thought denotes the thoughts of selfless renunciation or detachment, thoughts of love and thoughts of nonviolence, which are extended to all beings. It's very interesting and important to note here that thoughts of selfless detachment, love, and nonviolence are grouped on the side of wisdom. This clearly shows that true wisdom is endowed with these noble qualities, and that all thoughts of selfless desire, ill will, hatred, and violence are the result of a lack of wisdom in all spheres of life, whether individual, social, or political. Okay? And then right understanding. We say comprehension that dissipates delusion. Right understanding is the understanding of things as they are, and is the 4 noble truths, and it is the 4 noble truths that explain things as they really are. Right understanding, therefore, is ultimately reduced to the understanding of the 4 noble truths. All formations are transient. All formations are subject to suffering. I just lost my brain. All formations are without an independent and permanent self. What's the 4th one?
It's the Eightfold Path.
There we go. Thank you. A little hiccup in my giddy up. Thank you. This understanding is the highest wisdom, which sees the ultimate reality. According to Buddhism, there are 2 sorts of understanding. What we generally call understanding is knowledge, an accumulated memory, and intellectual grasping of a subject according to certain given data. This is called knowing accordingly. It is not very deep. Real deep understanding or penetration is seeing a thing in its true nature without name and label. This penetration is possible only when the mind is free from all impurities and is fully developed through meditation. I'm going to read that part again. What we generally call understanding, okay, according to Buddhism, there are 2 sorts of understanding. What we generally call understanding is knowledge, an accumulated memory, and intellectual grasping of a subject according to a certain data. This is called knowing accordingly. It's not very deep. Real deep understanding or penetration is seeing a thing in its true nature without name and label. This penetration is possibly only when the mind is free from all impurities and is fully developed through meditation. Okay? From this brief account of the Noble Eightfold Path, one may see that it is a way of life to be followed, practiced, and developed by each individual. It is self-discipline in body, word, and mind, self-development and self-purification as well. It has nothing to do with belief, with prayer, with worship, or ceremony. In that sense, it has nothing which may popularly be called religious. It is a path leading to the realization of ultimate reality, to complete freedom, complete happiness and peace through moral, spiritual, and intellectual perfection. Thank you for your comments and engaging and being willing to be here. And may you all recognize that you're a Buddha already. You're already one. Just stop doing those other things.
Mhm.
Yeah, and have a good sense of humor about it as well when we start doing those things. I mean, it's important to have a good sense of humor because we screw up.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Have a beautiful day.
Thank you.
Yes,
And
thank you.
I'm going to do the giving back the merit.
Thank you very
Just
much.
so you guys know, I'll do it on here.
Thank you.
So, this is my first time doing it, so I'm a little like, I don't know how to say it in like a singing way, but I'm gonna try to do it. So you could repeat after me, with each line. Okay. May the merit of this practice
May the merit of this practice
benefit all beings
benefit all beings
and bring peace
and bring peace. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Have a beautiful day.
Thank you, you too.
Bye-bye.
Bye all.